Hello. Feels like, hey, how's everyone doing? How you doing, Henry? Are you still well?
I got my test today and it's negative.
Hey,
So very happy about it, but I guess I need to go into quarantine anyway. It depends on our bureaucracy here. Need to wait for that.
Tough times, but still glad your test is negative. That's halfway good, right? Awesome. Skarbek is in that incident, so I'm not sure if we should start without him, I think.
Okay, let's start then. So we don't have plans for demos today. So this is kind of, basically the reason behind this is that we thought about testing this in production, and maybe it wasn't really clear what happened the last 2 weeks, but basically we always tested the happy paths. We were always lucky except for the missing machine, but it wasn't in the cleanup phase. So the point is that we should first work out the failure scenarios before we can move on, let's say, testing this on production. And so because we don't have demos today, we can spend time to figure out what are actually the next steps and making sure that everyone is involved and aware of what we want to do here, and just so we can figure out the failure scenario and what can we test next. So the first one is one that we kind of discussed a bit last week, was the recoverable host failure. And as an example, we had this running out of disk space. So yeah, it's more of an open question. So how can we test this? Let's try to make a plan together, basically.
Yeah, I just commented there that maybe, the idea would just be to create a file to fill up the disk, right? That's what we can do. And so that's more or less a manual step. And I think we don't need to have any automation on this. So just creating on one selected node a big enough file in the temp directory, and then run the rollback or deployment and see how it fails. I don't know how much free space we need for deployment. We need to unpack the package, I guess, something like that. So I'm not sure how much we need to fill it up, but that should be easy to be adjusted depending on space available on the node.
Do we think this is something we have to, let's say, be more verbose about what we are going to do with the rest of the infrastructure team, just for awareness? Because we are kind of inducing a small outage. It's not a real outage, right? Just one machine that, because filling up the disk space may have other aspects. Yeah.
I would do this in staging and then maybe send a note to the SRE that we are going to fill up the disk for testing, but I think there's not much more needed in staging anyway. And so I think that shouldn't be an issue. And in production, we often enough had these issues with API nodes, failing because they were full. So we know what's happening. But yeah, testing and staging should be good enough, I think.
Okay.
Would we be able to recover that ourselves? On a testing. So if we fail, we'll fail the rollback, and then do you have permissions, Henry, to be able to actually remove that file as well from the machine?
Yeah, I have permissions to everything.
Great, great. We're going to keep that.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I don't know what permissions do the rest of us have. So the release managers, like developers, do you all have root?
I doubt it.
We should have on staging.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Yes.
The point is that the access grant, the base entitlement, I don't even remember the right name. So basically the definition of what a backend engineer in delivery the permission that he have was changed after the creation of the team. So I think that it really, all of us is in a different situation. But in theory, we should be allowed to have root access on staging machine, but not on production ones.
Makes sense.
Should we normalize that? I recall I had staging access. I don't have it anymore. I only have access to the Rails console and to the DB console, but I don't have access to the machines. I think we should like normalize that.
I think that's what's expected, Myra, from what I understood. I think that's
okay.
the development. So when we
no, she should have also shell access to the staging environment.
I don't have that one. Yeah.
Are you sure?
I have, and I renormalized my situation myself. Just kidding. This is the new rules. I missed most of them. So it was kind of there was a real approval, but was kind of duty stamping it, right? Just say it's exactly what is written in the base entitlement. So and was realigned.
Okay.
So it's kind of a paperwork thing.
About Robert as well. So let's Myra, do you want to open an issue? We can actually work out what the conditions are and work out what everyone has and just normalize.
Yeah, because I don't think I even have like console access.
Wow.
Should we also have, well, we can discuss in the issue, but should we also have admin access on staging? I think I have. Yeah, I have admin access on the staging.
You should have one. It's all defined in the thing. Which instance you should have admin access, if it's your own user or if you need an extra user. It's very detailed. It also goes down into what access you should have in AWS, in DigitalOcean if you're still using it. So there's a lot of details.
Cool. So should we try and write up this rollback issue, this staging rollback issue?
Yeah, let's try doing this. So what I have in mind here is that we should try writing a plan of what we will do, and then we run. I mean, we review this and we can run it next week if it sounds reasonable. So, Henry, are you willing to just try to frame this? I mean, we can do this together, but you started with your idea, right? So filling up to this. So maybe we can work this together as a team, trying to figure out when do we want to fill it up? How can we fill it up? What do we expect? How is gonna the failure look like, and how we should fix this?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to test how long it takes to fill up the disk, because if you need to fill up 10 gigabytes, it could take a while. I mean, not too much, but I'm not sure how much we would need to fill up. So first step is testing, so we know how long it takes to write a 10 gigabyte file maybe. And then we need to measure how much free space is there and how much do we need to fill up to really make it fail. It should be an easy calculation. And then in the issue, I already pasted a command which we can use to do this with DD to just create a file the size that we want. And then we should be done and can start the rollback and everything else and see how it fails, hopefully. And then we should make sure after that, of course, to delete the file again.
So, yeah. I was thinking, do we want to make it fail after the warm-up or before? Because I think it adds, so from my point of view, when things fail during or before the warm-up phase is kind of no big deal, because we know that nothing started happening yet. So my suggestion here would be to make it fail when it arts more, right? So during the real deployment. So filling it up after passing the warm-up phase. And I have a question for who may know the answer, which is, instead of using DD, maybe we can use truncate, where you can provide the size, but I'm not sure if the Linux kernel is smart enough to figure out that there is actual real space. Because with truncate, you can say create a file of 10 gigabytes, and we'll not write it. We just say, okay, there's a 10 gigabytes file on disk, but then I don't know
I'm not sure. I think that's a sparse file, and I think the kernel would be clever enough to know that this space isn't taken, but I'm not sure we need to test. So I'm always doing things like that with DD. With truncate, we could test maybe, but I think a sparse file would not take the real space.
Yeah, because I was thinking about timing, right? So because we want, I mean, we can still cancel the job, fill it up, and then rerun it. So that, because I don't want us to be in this situation where we have to rush to get the disk filled and maybe we just miss the opportunity to have the real failure. So
I mean, we can prepare it in steps, right? We can fill it up nearly enough, then start the rollback, and then fill up the rest when we feel ready that it should fail.
Yeah.
We just need to figure out how much we need and how much is too much, right?
Okay, so how do we, oh, so I was looking, so Robert was taking note in the issue. Nice. Oh.
So I do have a question. Well, this problem of having not enough space, like on the disk space, could lead to not being able to insert database records? I think the answer is going to be no, or features not working for some reason.
It really depends on, so if we end up with a disk that has no space at all, the type of failure is really unpredictable because it really depends on what is happening. So you may crash the running Puma and who knows what is happening. But I think that the point here that Henry made, and also I think Robert was trying to figure out, yeah, the numbers around this, is that in order to install a package, it has to be extracted. So that one alone is kind of a big expansion phase where it's very likely that if you leave enough space for regular operation to continue, but not enough to expand it, it may just give us enough troubles to see the failure, but not to cause any type of, say, long-term problem.
I think also to your point, Myra, like, yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of the sort of the point of this testing now, is to actually find out what might go wrong and how do we respond to it, so that, like, we see this fairly often in production. So it's a decent chance we'd hit this if we rolled back production. So we should absolutely see how wrong it goes.
So the point is that oh no, I just moved too much. So we can try to take a look at the number of disk, the free space, fill it up enough to allow for the warm-up phase, but not to have enough space left for expanding it. And so we run the, and then we run the rollback. Is that what we are trying to do?
Just repeat it once more, sorry.
So we take a look at the disk space. We pick one machine and we take a look at the available space. We fill it up enough so that we have enough space for the warm-up phase, so downloading the package, but not enough to expand it. So just a trivial example, let's say we have a 200 megabytes package. We just leave 300 megabytes because we know that then once expanded is 2 gigabytes, something like that, just random numbers. So we should be able to download it, but not be able to expand it, so that we don't have to deal with timing with the rollback itself, right? Because we just have to check after the warm up that there's really a tiny fraction of space and it should fail. And so after this, we run the rollback, we see the failure, and how do we fix it? I mean, the point is, what we expect a failure that can happen. So if this would happen in real, in a real rollback in production, how do we fix it?
Would the first step be to try and work out how much impact it's having?
If it fails during the warm up, though, that's not really a meaningful test, right? It's like, in reality, we would clean the cache and free up disk space, and then it would continue undoing, like rolling out the package. I think a more interesting failure would be like certain hosts fail actually, like restarting Unicorn or Puma or whatever, and then where we're in an inconsistent state during the deployment. I think that's more interesting.
Are we expecting for the failures to be like when we are updating the fleet, or when we are executing the migrations or updating the assets? I think it will be interesting if it fails when we are updating the fleet.
That's mostly all we're doing on rollbacks, right? Like, what are the other steps that could fail?
The migrations, which I think it is now operational now. The assets.
It's no longer there. The job is removed as well as the
okay. Okay. Okay, then it should fail on the fleet, right?
Yeah, basically we trimmed it down up to warming up, installing the packages, and tracking the running QA, but this is not a topic, and then tracking the result. So that's one. It can fail upgrading a machine or preparing, just downloading the packages. The thing, what Robert was suggesting is, so, I mean, last time we identified kind of two main areas. One is something that is recoverable regardless of what the error is. So a machine that goes offline, if we can spin it up online again, it's recoverable. If we can't, because it was deleted and there's no way we can generate this one, then it's an unrecoverable failure. And then we have another scenario for that one. And either, so we can fill up the disk. Yorick proposed another thing that happened today. Basically, we downloaded a corrupted package, so it was impossible to expand it. So all of this involves manual interaction from an SRE or some, I would say an SRE, because yeah, we have access to staging machine, but we say SRE in general, to fix the machine because it's recoverable, but doesn't mean that we are targeting to do self-recovery here. We are not doing it for regular deployment. Why should we start with rollback and addressing self-recovery, right? So the point here is that if something fails when a machine, during the rollout, so when a machine fails, what happened? So my assumption here is that we will reach a point where we have two versions running. Is not really clear if will be just one machine missing out, or it really depends on when it fails. So if we just upgrade everything else except that one, and so then we can fix it and we can rerun it, and will the end result be a system which is completely rolled back? And I think the real question here that we want to figure out is, can we really retry the job? Will it do the right thing? And this type of, so I don't think we should.
So in just one sentence, we want to make sure that every step we are doing is idempotent, right? So that you can repeat it with the same result. I think that's the thing that we need to figure out and that we want to try by testing, right? And if we identify things which are not idempotent, then we need to be extra careful, right? And need to have runbooks or something else to know how to deal with that, like restarting the whole deployment or something else, right? So we need to differentiate between things which are idempotent, which can just be retried, like starting the job again, and things like if you deleted a machine in between, that you need to run the whole deployment again because we need to update our inventory and things like that, right?
Yeah. There's also another thing related to this, which I think is about being aware that things can go wrong and not panicking when it will happen. So it's just a matter of things can go wrong. So let's try to figure out, let's show that things can go wrong and we can recover, instead of just having to deal with this for the first time during a real incident, during a real production rollback.
Yeah, that makes sense. So based on Henry's sort of summary of that, then is this filling up of the disk the best sort of first test case to test this out, to test that we can just rerun to rollbacks.
I think this failing when installing, like after the pre-warm phase, that sounds very much like a condition where we can't really fix it by repeating anything, right? So it needs manual interaction. And after that, I guess we can rerun the job, which would be fine. So that would be maybe a good test. And we have some experience with that. And I don't know what else could break if we fill up the disk. I mean, as Alessio said, we could have issues with processes just stopping because they can't write to temp or something like that. So it's very unpredictable what can happen. So we can't have a solution for everything here. But if we just need to be able to roll back, then it's not that important that the single host is working perfectly, just that we can bring it back into a state that is expected, right? So and if we try to cover this, then it just means bring it in a state where we can retry the same job again, right? Idempotently.
Yeah, that sounds good. Do we have enough to write this one up?
I mean, we could just put it in the issue, right? That we already have for this. And then I could try to write something up there and then ask the experts to fill in the details of our pipelines that I'm missing maybe.
Sounds like a great plan. So, okay. Should we move to the next item? Okay, something that came out from the conversation is about QA failure. And where we were discussing QA failure, then we realized that, wait, we are not running QA triggers at the end of a production deployment. So we always saw QA in our rollbacks because you're rolling back staging. But this would not happen during production rollback. Now, do we want to run it only for rollback? What can go wrong? What should we do if something goes wrong? So let's open for discussion.
I think we should. It will give us some confidence on this package, even though it was already tested on all of our environments. And if something goes wrong and it is like a legit failure, well, then we need to investigate as any other failure in our environment. Or perhaps it is a flaky one and we just need to retry.
Is there a reason we don't run these as part of deployments, production deployments?
We run them on Canary, but I'm not sure why don't we run them on production.
This is a great question. And I don't know if, I think, yeah, Robert is the long tenured in this team, if he has a good answer for historical reason. Do you know why? Because I have guessed.
I believe the Canary deploy runs both a Canary and a production QA job. I don't know why we don't do it after the production promotion.
So I have just some guess here. So I think that the deployment pipeline is already long enough. And so because we tested it on Canary, we kind of expect the same behavior. And we already run production QA smoke tests, I think once every hour, something like that. So probably it's also this and a matter of not putting too much load on a system and things like that. But I mean, I'm just guessing here. So
I also wonder if it might be, if we do run them on Canary, whether we've left anything behind in the database that might conflict. I mean, I hope they clean up, but they may not, right? Not all tests clean up everything. So that might be a good thing to answer. I agree with Myra that if we can run these in production, it would be nice, but it might be worth us trying to find out why we don't do that already. Because I think even if we had them on the rollback as like a rollback was pretty much done, tests were just running through for kind of additional confidence, that would feel quite nice after an incident. Do you want me to take an action to find out why we don't run these on a production deployment?
Yeah, let's try to figure out if we are overlooking something, because I think that our final action here could be just to, and then we run it only on rollbacks, but maybe let's figure out if there was good reason for not doing this.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds like a good plan. One of the good things, if we can't run them though, is rollbacks just got quicker.
Yeah, I would still consider tracking the successful rollback before running the QA. This it kind of, well, the new package is running. Maybe it's broken, but in terms of deploying something, it was successfully deployed.
Yeah, I think we should. Because we don't want to have to just watch it, right? Like, I think we should consider it as a extra like check. So.
Okay. Next point. This is interesting. Is my favorite topic. So. Blocking new deployment and attempting a rollback. So far, we are always discussing this kind of synthetic example where we decide to roll back for no reason. So we are taking a perfectly working system and attempting to roll it back, which is exactly like a rolling forward. I mean, there are complexity around this, but it's basically you have a system that behaves and you install something else. This will be one use case for rollback, but I don't think will be the more common. The more common one will be rolling back during an ongoing deployment. So it's more about how and when can we stop an ongoing deployment? What will happen if we start a rollback with broken pipeline? Broken pipeline in the sense that there was an ongoing deployment that failed. So we had a broken pipeline on production deployment, and we want to roll back. So, question. Oh, I just had some question. I remember. So, do we know when it's really safe to stop a deployment? And if we have to make this goal, and I mean the company now, not just our team. So, who should make it? So, is the SRE on call that should just say, kill the deployment and we are going to make a rollback, or is us release managers that we decide, no, things are going bad, we want to stop it now?
Should it be a combination of both? Oh, sorry.
No, it was another question. So let's discuss this one.
Yeah, I think it should be a combination of both. Particularly, I'm not quite sure when it is safe to stop a production deployment. I think it might be safe stopping it before it updates the fleet, but I'm not sure about the state of the machines when we do that. So probably an SRE can help with that.
Yeah, this is exactly a good answer. And I think that everyone in our team has his own view on when he knows it's safe to stop something, let's say prior to warming up or between warming up and before GitLab starts upgrading things, right? But then when you are in the middle of something, can you really hit that cancel button? Wow, this is a good question.
I'm glad I haven't had to, right? I know we talk about it a lot, like the RM should decide if they could halt it. I'm like,
So maybe we need a kill switch. So something like a feature flag that we can flip, and the deployer will halt as soon as it's safe doing so. I mean, I never thought about this. It just came to my mind now that we're discussing.
I like it, yeah, like maybe like a chat ops, like cancel deployment type thing. I like that a lot.
And so I'm just thinking aloud here. I'm kind of imagining that he will, because we do batches, so probably we just complete the batch and put all the machine back into ready state and just kill the job, right? Just say I failed because someone told me to quit. Maybe this, I don't know what you think about it. Maybe this could remove a lot of stress around us hitting that cancel button, because it's really hard to parse what is happening in Ansible output to say, yeah, now it's the right time, right? Well, I don't know. So yeah, maybe this is a good action item.
I think that's a great item. One question I have, so I think in terms of your question of like, when would we want to trigger the halt? I think maybe the most common scenario I could think of is almost the question mark of something doesn't look right, either from our metrics or another alert. We halt the deployment whilst we kind of consider what happens next. And then from that point, either resume or roll back.
Yeah. So thinking long-term here, this is basically what we were trying to do with the production checks.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So
like a manual step of that, right?
Yeah. So something like, I'm not sure something is going wrong here. So whatever you run the next production check, make it fail, so that it will stop what it's doing. And we can investigate and decide if we want to roll back or roll forward. And this is good, but then we have the other options, which is something fail. So if something failed during a deployment, we are in a broken state. And this is all the conversation that Skarbek and I are having in that issue about our HA proxy. So I think the Skarbek point is really good. No, he is not in this call, but yeah, I would just try to verbalize his idea. So because I was learning a lot following that conversation, because it's not exactly my, so I'm not really comfortable in discussing this because I don't know how it works. So Henry, you can correct me if I'm saying things that makes no sense. So basically, all of our fleet is behind HA proxy, and every machine behind HA proxy have 3 states. Could be up, I think, or run ready. I don't know, up. Let's say up, maintenance and drain. So happy part is that we drain machines. Drain means that they receive no traffic, and we upgrade them. And so at the end, we put them back in ready. So this is the happy part. If something breaks in between, a number of machines are in drain state. So what happens is that when we run another deployment, the prepared job checks that all the machines in that environment are either up or maintenance, where maintenance means a human operator decided to put this machine offline, and so tooling should not touch it. Yeah, kind of. So it can touch it. By touch it, I mean tooling should not put it back in the rotation. While drain means an automated system is handling this. It's in the middle of a deployment. So if now it's still in drain and I'm starting a new deployment, something went wrong. And so basically the deployment bail out and say, no, I'm not going to touch this because something is wrong. So I was proposing complex solution to this problem, but I think the Skarbek idea is very good. Here is it, and it's maybe we should just avoid that check in a rollback, because when we are issuing a rollback is something that we assume that we are in a broken state. So there will be an incident. So for instance, the production pre-check will fail because there is an incident open. It's very likely that our metrics will be bad. So this will fail as well, and is expected in this case to have machine in drain state. So maybe what he was proposing here is that we should just ignore the drain state and consider drain machine as a, say, up, in the sense that we don't bail out and we continue with the deployment, so that at the end of the deployment, which is a rollback in this case, they will go back into up state.
To me, that totally makes sense. I mean, it's an operator error if you set a machine into drain and after that not into maintenance, if you intended to really put it out of traffic for a longer time, right? And if it's only temporarily, then I think the risk isn't that big that we, during a rollback, put it up again. We shouldn't fail of some nodes being in drain state because we know that can happen because something before didn't finish maybe. And that also would make it then, again, idempotent, right? Because we can just continue the same operation and expecting the same result at the end, which would make it much more robust. We just need to educate everybody dealing with HA proxy that we use maintenance if we really want to put machines into maintenance and not just put them into drain state. So then this automation should work, I think.
Well, consider that this, say, let's call it bad behavior. If I could say SRE because I think I'm the only one that can put machine drain state. Maybe I'm wrong. So if you are just draining something because you want to put it in maintenance, and you are not, you're just draining, it will fail also a regular deployment. So I think is something that we are in a certain way already addressing because it will fail deployment. So someone will make question and we will figure out why this happened.
Is there a chance we miss anything else by skipping these checks?
This is the question that I have left in that issue. So I think we need to check what is happening in that job. And if it's just checking that state, then we can skip it. If not, we have a variables in the deployer that tell us that we are rolling back. So we should act on that variable instead. So when we do the Ansible check, say check if everything is maintenance or up, we just say not if this variable is set.
And on your point, Henry, about educating people about maint and versus drain, do you mean across all of infra? Like, are there SREs that we'd need to make sure are using the right state for this stuff as well?
Yeah, I think that's especially for SREs a good education because I know for myself, I didn't know this for a long time because I always assumed, okay, I want to drain a node, then I put it into drain and then I do something with it. Maybe there's some issue with it and I leave it until tomorrow. And then I got reminded by somebody else, oh, why is it on drain? Put it into maintenance because that's the right state for it. And it's just a thing of knowledge. It's hard to, maybe you could have some kind of check for that, an alert, or which needs to be silenced then if you really are doing something with it. I'm not sure if there's a way to prevent this, but education maybe is the best way. And assuming if you put something into drain manually, then it's mostly because of an change issue, I think. And then we need to check what's going on there, of course. But if you roll back anything, something is broken, and then I think this takes precedence of putting it out of drain state again, instead of being blocked.
Do our checks currently tell us everything that's in drain state when they fail?
It's a bit hard to parse that error. So probably the first time you see it, just say, what is happening here? Stuff. But yeah, basically there's a list and it involves the fact that you have this concept of front end. There's a weird math involved. And every time I go back in release management and one of this check fails, I can't really understand how it's working, but yeah. It's kind of, we have multiple front end, which are HA proxy, and then we have multiple backends and just kind of, basically there's a Cartesian product between the two things. So it's like, how many servers do we have here? Because it's kind of, but yeah, you see the error.
Yes, okay.
Okay, so I can take this one, trying to scope out, to cover what we discussed, try to scope out what we should do to make this real.
Should we split this one up? Because this one has a couple of things, right? So this one has the halting a deployment as well as the skipping of the check. And does it have other stuff in here as well?
No, these are the two main. So the starting question is, how can we start a rollback if there is a failed deployment, or if you want to stop ongoing deployment and issue a rollback? And this basically are the two main sub issues here, which is one, how can we safely stop an ongoing deployment, which deserves its own issues, and the thing we discussed about kill switch, shadows command, whatever, so that when it's safe, the deployment script, so the deployer will bail out and fail the ongoing deployment, instead of just us clicking cancel and hoping for the best. The other one is about something went wrong. So we are in a broken state in terms of HA proxy view of our infrastructure. So HA proxy thinks that something is broken. How can we issue a rollback in this state when there's usually we do manual cleanup? So the point is, how can we remove this manual cleanup in this specific case?
So just to understand the problem for the first case, why will we need to stop an ongoing deployment to rollback? Is it because GitLab.com is down or something, and we really want to roll back as soon as possible?
If you realize, this is a good question, Myra. So the idea is that you're rolling out a package that is broken. Let's say maybe the merge request search doesn't work at all. So big P1 S1 issue, and instead of generating a complete outage, which means we roll out everything and now it doesn't work no matter what. If we are lucky enough to spot this early, we can stop the ongoing deployment. So only 10% of the traffic, for instance, is affected and rolled back. So this is the use case. Does it make sense, Myra?
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it will be in a situation in which we, for some reason, didn't notice this in staging North Canary, and it is currently being deployed to production, which actually happened to me once. But yeah, it wasn't like an S1, P1, it was an S2, P2. But yeah, I only noticed the failure on production, not on Canary.
Yeah, I mean, it could be also for, yeah, it happened, right? That we figured out that something was broken during the deployment and it was not catched by QA or anything else before. And so right now we have no good answer. So I had to cancel some deployment, and I don't remember if it was this shift or the previous one, but it's really stressful to figure out if you can do it now or not. So yeah, that's it.
If we have halted a deployment, or if a deployment's in progress, do we know if we can roll back? Do we have that ability yet?
So the point is that yes, we can, because we didn't reach the post-deployment migration. So consider that same code is already running in a percentage of the fleet, maybe a big one or a small one, but we are already in a mixed state. Because yeah, basically we are rolling out a new package and the current one is still running. So we just want to stop the rollout of the new package and restore every machine to the current one. So the point of no return is yet to be reached.
Should we add that to our runbook? I'm not confident about that little subtlety staying in my brain in an incident.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think our runbook right now is good, because
it's one very specific case though, right? It's like, exactly. If you're in this situation, this runbook's perfect.
We miss a couple of check and concept at the beginning of it. So kind of extra cases, special cases, what to do if, because we are always assuming that we are in a P1 incident, something bad is happening, but there's no ongoing deployment and anything like that. We just install the package, which is, as I said, as you said as well, just a specific case. So I have another item here, which is, yeah, it's more a statement, but I'm happy to discuss this. So we know that we cannot start a rollback if GitLab.com is down. We kind of discussed this briefly last week, and I opened a couple of issues discussing this. So I was thinking, I deprioritized this work basically. So reason being, there's a lot of ongoing thing right now that we discussed, and this is a known limitation, but is not worse than what we have today. So let me. All the other failure are we start a rollback and something goes wrong. So we need to make sure that we can go to the end of the rollback. But here it's kind of at the beginning of the rollback, we don't even have the option to roll it back. So yes, I would love to be able to roll back also in case of a GitLab.com complete outage, but it's not worse than what we have today. Does this make sense? Do you have counter arguments?
It just frightens me very much if I think about it.
What are the chances, though, that this would have rolled through staging and through, well, up to Canary, right, and then taken it out, well, beyond Canary, right? So we can't drain Canary. Like, it's scary, but doesn't feel like the sort of thing that will happen. Like, I hope it's never happened before I say this. Has it ever happened?
Well, so this is just a generalization, right? So the worst case, we are completely down, but maybe we just rolled out something that broke the release API is enough to remove our ability to roll it back. So basically we rely on that information. And so if we can't get this out, there's no way we can roll it back. Kind of. I mean, we can try to figure out packages, going through the history of Slack and things like that, but the runbook will not help you. You just have to do something with what you have at hand.
Yeah, I feel like we should think about it along with various, like we've got a few gaps like this, right? So maybe we should take a look at those, but it seems like we have enough rollback stuff to be testing on whilst we think about that stuff. It'd be good to have a plan, right? Even if it was like a fairly manual, it'd be nice to have a plan for what we'd do.
I have a question to the worst case still. So if you would come in a very bad state by deploying something, deployment goes wrong, we can't reach GitLab.com anymore for rolling back, would we at least be able to manually go on each node and try to reinstall the latest package, which is maybe still around there? Or something stupid like that to get us going again?
We never did. I think that maybe Marin, you know better than me, but if I'm thinking about big incident where we were offline or something similar, or we'd say something broken like at the very core, so basically every page failed, either we patched it with a patcher or was something, let's say, external to code changes, so load on the database or things that are kind of, we had to handle them externally.
Only time when we were hard down was database. So this is our recurring topic, apparently. Every 2 years we have the same thing. Or when we wiped out our load balancers. We have never, ever had an issue where code broke something fundamentally in the product, at least not in production. How we caught it? We caught it on dev.gitlab.org because it was running nightly packages and still runs nightly packages. We caught it in QA, whether manual QA or automated QA, and we caught it in staging before it went out to production. The only time that something resembling core breakage was when we were fixing a security problem. And that security problem changed the behavior of the said feature, and it broke fundamentally how the feature works for everyone involved. And at that point in time, we had to hot patch. Luckily, we could hot patch. And that was the CI, what was it? CI variable masking. I don't remember right now. Something CI fundamental was broken there.
Thanks for sharing, Marin. I was also thinking that maybe you should make sure that, because we rely on the API and the release API, that there is a QA test on the release API. I don't know, maybe there is, but I will maybe make sure that actually there is this test so that we can check and access the QA, because you're right. So maybe we may had something badly broken, but it has always been, maybe just one feature went away, but it usually was maybe some paid feature that some paid customer had, but not so fundamental to break everyone's workflow, because usually those big things are covered by QA. So it either be external causes or database problems, this type of problem here.
Another question. When we deploy something, we download the package in the pre-warm phase, right? Deploy everything, and after that, we remove the package again. Is that right?
Yeah, we clean. I think it's the job that failed the other times when we were missing the GitLab
I was
machine.
thinking if maybe it would be a good idea to just leave the latest version of package still in place, so we could more easily and faster rollback. I mean, that would take a little bit more disk space, but then everything would be in place for a rollback, right? If we figure out later that we broke something with this deploy, because normally it takes some time after deployment that we figure out that we need to roll back, I guess. I don't know if it would worth it, but that would be an extra security thing. So at least then we would have all the packages on the node still and could just manually go there and just install them, right? As a last resort of things. Just thinking out loud.
I don't know how we are doing this, because I'm quite sure that the cleanup is an apt cache. So I don't know if we first download the package in some directory, or if we just do we pull it basically. So we just download it from apt. And if that's the case, I don't know if there is an option to apt cache to say just clean up everything but something. So I don't know, but this is a good point.
We should get that one on the issue, because I think that's the sort of thing Skarbek will have good thoughts on. But yeah, it's a good idea. Should we check that we've got all the right actions from this? So what's the action from the maint and drain discussion?
So the action for the maint and drain discussion is to figure out if you are skipping other checks or not. And then the real action item is changing the rollback behavior to either remove the, what is the name, prepared job, or change the behavior of the prepared job to ignore drain machine.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's kind of completed, like basically follow through this conversation that's on the issue only. Okay, cool.
And the other one is still related to stopping an ongoing deployment, is just having a manual switch to stop it instead of canceling it. So we kind of have a clean broken state. Let's say.
And then there's the actual writing up of this scenario into test scenario, right, for testing a rollback. So got issue to have a way to safely halt a deployment. Who is going to do that?
I can take that one.
And then Myra, I think that leaves you with the have a crack at writing out the test scenario for this blocking a deployment and attempting a failure. And I think probably assume you have the drain thing resolved and assume you have a halt deployment, but it'd be good to at least think about what would we do on staging, what steps would we go through to actually test this. Is there anything else we need to go through?
Well, there's the investigation that Henry proposed about leaving the package in place. At least we should report it so that we don't lose track of that item.
Yeah, Henry, do you mind adding that to the, well, should we put all of this stuff into this 1621 issue?
Yeah, I will add it there.
Great, thank you. Cool. Is there anything else for today? Nope. Super. Great. Thanks for the discussion, everyone. Speak to you all later on.